Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Keystone Energy Forum. We're here at Robert Morris University in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, who is celebrating 100 years with 100 professionally focused degree programs for students across the globe. A quick lay of the land for everyone. Moon Township is just west of downtown Pittsburgh, and we've been asked to host this forum this morning due to our significant dependency on energy, in particular, natural gas. Why is 13 miles up the road, we have the largest United States construction project in play right now, the Royal Dutch Shell cracker plant, which is on our horizon. 1 mile away from us today is the Pittsburgh International Airport, which is being powered by the first natural gas solar microgrid, all fueled by Marcellus natural gas extraction right here on the airport property. Just a few miles away, a brand new Southern Beltway opened last week to provide a quick line directly to South Point from the airport in Canonsburg, which is home of the many corporate offices of the drilling community serving the Appalachian Basin. So with all that said, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our moderator for this morning's program, State Representative Valerie Gatos, who presides here in the 44th District of the Commonwealth. Valerie, the baton is being passed to you.
Thank you, Chris. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of this panel with the Keystone Energy Forum, as well as be a representative of this region, which is one of the largest regions for growth. And the reason for that is natural gas and energy. And we have so many assets in this region that it is just an absolute pleasure to bring the Energy Forum to this area. We're talking about, the title of this is Moving the Commonwealth into a Cleaner and More Prosperous Future with Natural Gas. And what better place to do it and make sure that we all have clean air, clean water, and also energy. I'd like to welcome here Mike Summers. Mike is the Chief Executive of the American Petroleum Institute, and that's the largest national trade association for the natural gas and oil industry. We've got a message here from Mike, and I'd like to tee it up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Summers, President and CEO of the American Petroleum Institute, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's virtual Keystone Energy Forum, as we discuss the all-important topic of moving Pennsylvania to a cleaner and more prosperous future with natural gas. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the Keystone Energy Forum for having me. Chris Heck, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Airport Area Chamber of Commerce. State Representative Valerie Gatos for moderating today's event, and our distinguished panelists, including Pennsylvania Treasurer Stacey Garrity, Joshua Baca, Vice President of the American Chemistry Council Plastics Division, and Dan Weaver, President and Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Independent Oil and Gas Association. As all of you know, Pennsylvania is one of the energy capitals of the world. I was in the Commonwealth this summer, and I saw firsthand how the resource basins have transformed the region, our nation, and beyond. I had the pleasure of visiting Northeast Pennsylvania in August and speaking with members of the Economic Club of Pittsburgh last month to underscore the Keystone State's role in America's energy story. Without Pennsylvania energy resources, America wouldn't be the world's top producer of natural gas and oil, reversing decades of foreign imports and dependence on unreliable regimes. Of course, energy is more than geopolitical intrigue. It's everything. It strengthens communities. It's not just your gas tank. It's about Pennsylvania jobs, growth, success, and it's about the products Americans need each day and what other industries from manufacturing to agriculture to construction depend on. Take the $6 billion Pennsylvania Petrochemicals complex that Shell is building in Potter Township. I'm sure you'll be hearing more about this facility from the speakers, but here's a quick preview. When it opens next year, the plant will use low-cost ethane from shale gas producers in the Marcellus and Utica basins to produce millions of tons of polyethylene each year, a chemical used in products from food packaging to makeup to Tupperware and auto parts. At the peak of construction, The site became the largest construction site in the country, with more than 6,000 workers employed there. And at least 600 people will be employed full-time when the plant opens for production. But that's only a piece of the Keystone state's energy progress. Pennsylvania's natural gas and oil industry directly and indirectly supported nearly 500,000 jobs across the Commonwealth's economy in 2019. For comparison's sake, Pittsburgh's total population is about 300,000 people. Of course, the contributions of this industry go far beyond the economy and extend into the realm of worldwide environmental progress. Without Pennsylvania's natural gas, America couldn't have reduced power-related carbon dioxide emissions 40% in the last 16 years, becoming the top source of U.S. electricity generation. And without Pennsylvania natural gas, America wouldn't be in a position to continue exporting environmental breakthroughs in the form of LNG all over the world to power both a growing population and reverse energy poverty. In 2019, federal estimates show that natural gas from Pennsylvania's Marcellus and Utica Shale are helping to power 20 different countries. It's a tangible success story and an example of American energy bringing the light quite literally to homes in the Commonwealth across America and around the world, where natural gas can replace less clean and less reliable energy sources to sustain life. You'll hear more about how we can continue this long-established Pennsylvanian and American energy success story from our panelists and our participants today. Thanks to them, and thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Mike. As you just stated, that America is the world's top producer of natural gas, and Pennsylvania is a big part of that equation. And while they are part of that equation, that Pennsylvania remains a major energy producer, their emissions have declined, jobs have proliferated, and this region is a huge leader in jobs. So it is such a large part of our economy. That's why we have here Stacey Garrity, State Treasurer Stacey Garrity, who is not only a businesswoman, but she's also a decorated former colonel in the Army Reserve and served in Iraq. So we want to thank her for her service on that. Stacey, do you want to share with us a little bit about the impact that this industry has on our Pennsylvania economy?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me here this morning, and it is truly an honor to serve as your state treasurer. I was born and raised in Bradford County, where I like to joke that we have more cows than people, but it's also in the middle of the Marcellus Shale. And growing up in a small town means service has been a part of my entire life, service in my community, service to my country, and now service to the great people of the Commonwealth. I did spend 30 years in the United States Army Reserves. I was a military police MP, had 3 combat deployments, and I did retire in 2016 after hitting my mandatory retirement date, or I would still be serving, because I have to say that serving our country was truly the honor of a lifetime. But at the same time, I spent 34 years in the private sector. So I worked in manufacturing at the largest tungsten smelter in the Western world. Now, tungsten, a huge percentage of our business for tungsten metal powder and tungsten carbide powders was used in the oil and gas industry, and that was for perforation and drilling. Now, of course, as state treasurer, my top priority is to be the fiscal watchdog for every Pennsylvanian, making sure that we protect more than our $115 billion of assets under Treasury's care. But I'm also dedicated to rural outreach, to make sure these areas are remembered by Harrisburg, listened to, and recognized for the tremendous impact they have on the Commonwealth. So while many people think of agriculture when they think about rural America, here in Pennsylvania, the energy sector is so important in these communities. So of course, Pennsylvania's history is rich in coal, and I'm sure you all know that we sparked the first oil boom in our country's history with the Drakewell when that was drilled in Titusville. That's just 2 hours north of here in 1859. So this was the very first commercial oil in the United States. And the energy sector remains very much alive in Pennsylvania today. So in 2008, and that's before the Marcellus Shale was being explored, Pennsylvania imported 75% of its natural gas. And today, just 13 years later, we produce 5 times the amount of natural gas that we use, and more than 20% of all natural gas produced nationwide. So it really truly is an economic driver. Now, just last month, the state's independent fiscal office reported that we exported a record amount of electricity last year, more than 79 million megawatt hours. That's an increase of about 13% year over year. The reason? Natural gas production. And then in 2020, Pennsylvania produced more than 7.1 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. That ranked us second among states, and it was a record for Pennsylvania. So last year was great, and our natural gas production this year is steady and actually a little bit higher. Natural gas produces good-paying jobs. They support local communities through impact drilling fees and helps Pennsylvanians keep more money in their pockets by reducing energy prices. So I've seen the positive impact of the industry firsthand, because in Bradford County, which again is part of the Marcellus Shale, we have more than 1,000 natural gas wells, the second highest total of any county in the state. And my neighbors in Susquehanna County, they're not far behind. So in Beaver County, and that's also been mentioned already a couple of times, Shell's building a major petrochemical plant that will, of course, produce ethane from shale gas. The company is investing billions of dollars in the plant, which will employ over 600 people when it's complete. And not to mention the thousands of construction jobs created since the project was announced, and then the related jobs that will be created outside the facility. So I toured the site this summer. It is so impressive. And it will be a critical piece of the ever-changing landscape of the energy industry here in Pennsylvania. But one thing we really have to focus on is this. All of the jobs create and maintain great jobs for our skilled Pennsylvanians, exactly the kind of jobs that our state needs. And of course, that means we need people with the right kind of training to fill those jobs. And since I took office, I've toured so many outstanding training sites across the state. I met the people being trained there. I met the people trained to work in the energy industry and the people training them. I have to tell you, those people make me excited about Pennsylvania's energy future. Now, unfortunately, not all the news is good. We all see it every time we go to the gas pump. Prices are up, way up. It seems like they go up every time I fill up my tank. Now, across the nation, the price of gas is up by more than $1 compared to this time last year. And crude oil prices are still rising. They recently topped $80 a barrel for the first time in 8 years. We absolutely rely on these sources of energy, natural gas and oil, along with coal. Now, in 2019, the first time since 1957, the U.S. was a net exporter of energy. Our energy production exceeded consumption by the equivalent of 412,000 barrels of oil a day. But policy decisions at the federal level are putting that achievement at risk. The Biden administration closed the Keystone pipeline, and then just days after taking office, he signed an executive order stopping oil and gas leasing on federal lands and waters. Now, these decisions will have a significant long-term impact on America's ability to become truly energy independent. So we need to focus our efforts here at home to harness the energy under our feet. It's a matter of protecting the wallets of Americans, but more importantly, it's a matter of national security. So we must maintain our energy production in America and Pennsylvanians, and we must lessen our dependence on imported fuels. And that's why earlier this year, I joined 14 other state treasurers to call on President Biden and his administration to stop trying to pressure financial institutions into divesting from natural gas, coal, and oil companies. Now, earlier this week, the Wall Street Journal, they reported that while fossil fuel investment is falling and fossil fuel production is struggling to meet demands, fossil fuels still account for, by far, most of our energy consumption. Now, in Pennsylvania, these industries, they support communities across the state, especially our rural communities. They're supporting our hardworking, middle-class families, but they're also supporting farmers and many local businesses who provide crucial products and services. The Biden administration is trying to pressure banks into no longer doing business with these companies. Now, that will hurt our state, and it will drive prices even higher. We can't have the federal government pick and choose who banks do business with based on politics. Energy companies deserve access to capital and financial services, the same access as any other company. Cutting off banking relationships and making it difficult or even impossible for American companies to find the financial support they need will hamper the growth and success of our energy industry. It will jeopardize our nation's security. And if President Biden or any other politician tries to hurt Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania will fight back. From coal mining to oil wells to today's natural gas industry, Pennsylvania has always been at the center of energy, and I will never stop fighting for our families, for our jobs, and for our national security. Again, thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you, Treasurer Garrity. I appreciate it, all your work, and thank you for standing up for Pennsylvania. We really appreciate that. The next speaker we're going to have is Dan Weaver. He's the president and executive director of PIOGA, and that's the Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Association, the state's largest and oldest gas trade association representing the full industry, from conventional to shale and beyond. And I want to remind everybody that's listening that if they have any questions, they feel free to pass them on, because we're going to do a question and answer session after we get through the speakers. So with no further ado, Dan Weaver.
Thank you, Representative. I greatly appreciate it. And as Representative stated, I'm Dan Weaver, President and Executive Director of PIOGA, Pennsylvania Independent Oil and Gas Association. We've been around for about 103 years now, going into our 104th year next year. We have roughly 360 member companies, and we truly do represent them all, from conventional to shale and beyond. So we have anywhere from a producer that may only have one or two oil wells that might be, fourth or fifth generation in their family, to some of the larger producers that have, countless thousands of wells, within the Marcellus region. So we greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. So we're looking towards the future, and from those of you that may or may not know my background, it's political science and history and education. So I think to understand where we're going, we have to understand where we've come from. And those looking back at the last year realize that the last 18 months, it's been rough. It's been rough. However, we couldn't be where we're at today if it wasn't for the natural gas industry. Americans often take for granted the thousands of products that come from natural gas that we use from every day, and oil, including lightweight automotive parts and paints and food packaging and performance clothing. These important consumer products and items, can only be processed from feedstocks, using chemical treatments and technologies to make each one of those products. The same goes from the hundreds of petroleum-derived items used by our healthcare providers, something we don't think about. So from simple items such as Band-Aids to latex gloves to the complex heart valves and artificial joints. If we think about those people that have been affected by COVID and wound up in an emergency room or an ER, there's over 90 different products in every emergency room that are made possible from processing natural gas and oil into advanced plastics and synthetic rubber in the typical emergency room. So that's something to think about. As the treasurer mentioned, and as well as Mike mentioned, jobs. Jobs are extremely important. So even during the COVID pandemic, oil and natural gas jobs were deemed essential. So our workers were out there making sure that they provided the products that were then allowed to generate electricity and provide power and heat to heat those hospitals and to heat those homes. So a little bit of facts about jobs here in Pennsylvania, and the positive economic contributions need to be shared. The economic activity and travel and consumption continue to grow during this post-pandemic recovery. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, the EIA, expects global oil and liquid fuel consumption to surpass 2019 levels in 2022. The report reinforces how natural gas and oil industry in Pennsylvania in particular is critical to the economic revitalization and opportunities for job creation. In PA, according to findings in a 2019 Pennsylvania natural gas and oil supported more than 480,000 total jobs, 100,000 of those being direct and 377,000 of those being indirect. Or what does that mean? That's a total of 6.1% of the total state's employment. It generated 3.7 jobs everywhere, elsewhere in the Commonwealth's economy for each direct job in the state's natural gas and oil industry. It provided $40.5 billion in labor income to Pennsylvania, or 7.9% of the state's total. It contributed $78.4 billion to Pennsylvania's gross domestic product, or 9.7% of the state's total. So if we look at that as where does that fall in on the national level? At a national level in 2019, the natural gas and oil industry supported more than 11.3 million total jobs, or 5.6%. So we actually have a higher percentage of employment here within the state than the national level. It generated another 3.5 jobs elsewhere in the U.S. economy for each direct job in the natural gas industry, and produced a staggering $892.7 billion in labor income. So not only just the jobs, but what are some of the other economic benefits that we see from the natural gas and oil industry in Pennsylvania? And that comes down to the consumers. So the benefits of the shale revolution in the United States over the past decade, including the exponential growth of natural gas in the Marcellus and Utica regions from the formations in this basin, has spanned across the nation's economic and environmental and social landscapes. In the preceding decade, the outlook for the country's energy future was on the border of a crisis, particularly if we look at natural gas supply. Prices spikes during 2000, 2003, 2005, and 2008 saw the Henry Hub rate soar between $15.77 an MCF in 2003 to $19.93 in 2005. Resulting in plans to build facilities to import liquefied natural gas from overseas at considerable expense. This doomsday scenario turned into a new day between June of 2008, when Henry Hub prices went from $16.09 to August of 2009, when it was $2.99. And what was the reason for this? Well, we know this 12 years later. We tend to take this energy drop in prices for granted, including natural gas and electricity. But we need to look at what it means to the families. And so that facility that Mr. Summers mentioned earlier, that we were supposed to import natural gas, now exports natural gas. So, but meaning, what does it mean for the families? Well, it means low-cost natural gas to produce electricity over the past 10 years. Statistics from the EIA show that an increase used natural gas electricity production between 2010 and 2020, growing from 988 billion kilowatt hours produced in 2010 to a staggering 1,617 billion kilowatt hours in 2020. So what else does that mean? Well, for those people that use natural gas to heat their homes, the average price of natural gas delivered to residential customers between 2005 and 2008 was $13.35, even with spikes higher during certain months of the year. Adjusted for inflation, American consumers could be expecting to pay more than $17 in 2021 if the status quo was maintained. Rates began falling in 2009 while supplies increased and have remained at a consistent reduced levels. Resident customers in the U.S. paid on average $9.65 an MCF for natural gas at the start of 2021. The Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, the PUC, has estimated that the average customer in the state using natural gas for heating has seen the cost reduced by over $1,200 annually, a significant amount for many working families. But it's not just heating. It's electric prices as well. Retail electric prices on a national level are influenced by many factors, including source used for generating the energy, transmission costs, allowable infrastructure investments, and related items. Taken as a whole, however, average costs for consumers have stayed below the rate of inflation since the emergence of natural gas as a more significant source for electricity. The average high cost during the summer months between 2007 to 2009 was 11.7 cents a kilowatt hour, while the same high rate between 2018 and 2020 was 13.26 cents a kilowatt hour, about 12% below the rate of inflation. In comparison, the average electricity cost in 2019 for Mid-Atlantic shows Pennsylvania by far lower than its neighbors at 9.81 cents a kilowatt hour, with Delaware over 10 cents, Maryland over 11 cents, and New Jersey almost 14 cents, and New York over 14 cents, all much, much higher than we are here in Pennsylvania. Energy independence in the U.S., made possible by the shale gas revolution, is instrumental in reducing energy costs for residential, commercial, and industry consumers. The benefits and energy cost savings for these sectors is primarily due to the use of clean, reliable natural gas to produce electricity, which also provides greater energy security for our nation and the environment. Oil and natural gas producers and pipeline and utility companies are all part of the nation's climate change solution and have been for years. The industry has reduced CO2 and methane emissions from operations despite increasing production by staggering amounts. The increased use of natural gas for electricity production. The evidence is primarily the data is complied from the US, again, EIA, tells the success story of cleaner air, reduced CO2 and methane emissions, along with more use of natural gas. According to the EIA, the CO2 generated per unit of electricity has dropped between 2005 and 2016 from 1,300 pounds of CO2 a megawatt hour to 910 pounds, a decrease of 30%. This is due to the use of more natural gas to meet our electric demand, which increased by 60% between 2010 and 2017. The EIA reports that the methane emissions from the nation's onshore and offshore oil and gas operations dropped between 2011 and 2017 by 14 million metric tons, a testament to the fact that the energy industry continues to improve technology to control methane emissions from all aspects of its operations. And it's not just methane that we're actually reducing. We're seeing a drop in carbon monoxide by 63%. Nitrogen oxides by 58%, particulate matter by 42%, sulfur dioxide by 88%, and VOCs, volatile and organic compounds, by 19%. Natural gas will continue to play a key role in supplying affordable and reliable power to meet our demand for electricity, just as it will continue to be used as a source of choice for heating and food preparation in tens of millions of homes. It will continue to be refined into products that will support the mobility and standard of living Americans expect in an advanced society. And both natural gas and oil will be essential to manufacturing thousands of consumer, medical, and commercial products that many Americans take for granted every day. Pennsylvania has quickly emerged as a national leader in the production of natural gas, a fuel that is clean burning, abundant, and affordable. The positive trend is improving our environment, creating significant benefits for consumers, including an annual average cost savings of nearly $1,200 for Pennsylvania families. Oil and natural gas producers in Pennsylvania are using advanced technologies to safely generate the energy needed to power the lives of tens of millions of Americans and those people around the world. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate giving a little bit of context and what we've done for jobs and also the economy, as well as trying to make sure that we all have clean water, clean air, and are efficient. So thank you for pointing that out. Also, I just wanted to point out that, Dan, you are the museum educator for the Drakewell Museum, and that's really where in Pennsylvania oil began. I mean, we have a long history of oil and gas in this state, and we're definitely proud of our forefathers who came here to work in those fields and those jobs, and so we're continuing the long history of Western Pennsylvania and continuing that and being proud of our past. Thank you, Dan.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So our next speaker is Joshua Baca, and Joshua is the vice president of the ACC's plastic division. Josh oversees strategic programs to advance the science-based policy agenda, national outreach, and sustainability initiatives on behalf of the America's leading plastic makers. So we know that plastics are a large part of this, and we appreciate the work that you've done to make sure that this industry is moving forward, and also talking about great sustainability challenges that we have. So, Joshua?
Hey, well, good morning, and thank you so much for having me today. My name is Joshua Baca. I am the Vice President of the Plastics Division at the American Chemistry Council. We represent all of the resin manufacturers and the plastics value chain as a whole, who are, material goes into a variety of applications. Obviously, very common in food packaging, but also goes into things like automobiles, home insulation, helps us deliver clean water through pipe. And I'm here to talk to you today about some of the work that our company and our industry is doing as a whole when it comes to advanced recycling. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about growing and accelerating a circular economy, and I wanted to spend a few seconds to what that means. Circular economy for us and what our members are advocating for is us using material that is highly valuable over and over and over again. And particularly when it comes from a food packaging side, many of our companies like Shale, who's going to be one of the leaders in polyethylene production, have been leading in this space as well too. And maybe the easiest way to think about what advanced recycling is, it's really an innovative scientific process and a consortium of technologies that allow us to break down very difficult to recycle plastics, things that really aren't a bottle today, things that your nuts come in a pouch or a flexible packaging, a tube, variety of ways that our food gets packaged today. Pretty much everything that it can't be mechanically recycled today. And we use innovative technologies, a variety of technologies that really break down that plastic back to its molecular building blocks and allows our company and our industry as a whole to use that as feedstock to make new products and new plastic. Everyone has very robustly today about the work that Shale is doing in Pennsylvania. And I want to tip my hat to them. They've been a great partner in all the work we're doing. They're a fantastic member company and highly committed to the goals we're doing. And it's because of their leadership that we're advancing some of this work. They have already, in addition to building their polyethylene facility in Pennsylvania and out in Beaver County, have already committed to use 5 million metric tons of post-use plastic as feedstock in their facilities by 2025. That is a significant commitment because nearly 400 consumer brands have already made a pledge to use more recycled content or recycled plastic in their packaging. We as an industry set a goal that by 2040, 100% of our plastic packaging will be reused, recovered, or recycled. But it's not just Shell who's doing this work. Pennsylvania, as many people have said, is really the hub for much of this work going on. Several of our leading member companies are either located or have major presence in Pennsylvania, whether it's Covestro, who is leading in the space of advanced material that goes into a variety of applications and commitments to making their company as a whole completely circular, or if it's other companies like Nova Chemicals, which has a large presence in Pennsylvania, that is also leading in this area of advanced recycling, or even Braskem, which is an international company with a large presence in Philadelphia, that's also doing this work. All to say is that our industry as a whole has already committed nearly $7 billion in investments that will go to accelerating the growth and the commercialization of advanced recycling and ultimately creating that circular economy. When I think about what our industry is responsible for doing largely in the petrochemical space, we view our work as being a partner in sustainability. Plastics, as many folks said and know, go into a variety of applications, and many that I've outlined. When we think about a lower carbon future, we are the partners and the enablers that's going to make that happen. And when we think about creating a circular economy with advanced recycling as the centerpiece of that, we are going to be the ones who enable the growth of using more material efficiently that can go into new products over and over and over again. But I also want to point out how real this is. And, there's always a lot of talks about maybe what advanced recycling is and what advanced recycling isn't. I've had the privilege over the last couple of months with, not completely out of the pandemic, but the ability for us to get out more and travel and see our members. I've been able to travel the country and see many of these facilities firsthand both the stewardship of their operations, the effectiveness of what they're doing, and how really well they manage this from an environmental and a sustainability perspective. And I think it's showing that this growth is real. Obviously, all of us are very proud of the work happening in Pennsylvania, but it's really happening nationwide. Just last week, ExxonMobil announced that they're going to build one of the largest advanced recycling facilities in the U.S. Dow, another really important company in this space, is already working with partners like New Hope Energy to use more recycled content and recycled feedstock to make new products. And even just yesterday, Berry Plastics and Lyondell Basell are partnering with Wendy's. Everybody knows Wendy's, your fast food takeout with great ice cream and great burgers. The cups that they use are going to be made of plastic and include 20% recycled plastics that will come from an advanced recycling feedstock. So it's real. And maybe the final thing about how real this is just even this month, Fortune magazine labeled one of our companies, Eastman Chemical, out in Kingsport, Tennessee, in their Change the World edition, about the impact that they're doing to divert waste from landfills and divert waste out of the environment through their innovative advanced recycling technologies. So when it comes to advanced recycling, our industry is leading the way. We are the linchpin to sustainability and circularity, and we really think about advanced recycling as the centerpiece of that strategy. So major kudos to everyone involved in all the work that's been going on in Pennsylvania. Major hat off again to our partners at Shale and many of our other member companies who aren't only just building facilities in the state of Pennsylvania, but are committed to sustainability and circularity while providing good paying jobs and being good stewards of the environment. So I want to thank you for allowing me to be here. On behalf of all of our member companies and our industry as a whole, we really appreciate everything going on in Pennsylvania. And maybe the last thing that I would say here is major kudos to all of the stakeholders and the lawmakers in the state of Pennsylvania. Last November, in fact it was, the state of Pennsylvania passed legislation that would regulate advanced recycling as a manufacturing process, making it, I believe at the time it was the 12th state in the country to do so. We're now 15 states have done this. A really significant piece of legislation with bipartisan support in your legislature and signed by your governor that really puts the parameters around how we continue to scale advanced recycling as a manufacturing process. And it is that model and the work that happened on a bipartisan basis in your state that has really opened the floodgates to more of this happening across the U.S. and Congress and other states are considering very similar pieces of legislation, but it's because Pennsylvania led the way. So thank you so much for having me today. Thank you on behalf of all of our member companies and our industry again. And I very much appreciate being allowed to participate in this forum.
Thanks, Joshua. I really appreciate your comments. And again, the sustainability, the whole circular environment, we are trying to do the best we can to work, as you said, in a bipartisan manner to make sure that we have jobs, we have an economy, and we support this industry. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. As we mentioned, that if there is anybody that has any questions, please feel free to submit them. We do have a couple of questions here that have come through. And the first one will be for Treasurer Garrity. You had touched on this in your remarks that you joined 14 other state treasurers in calling on President Biden and his administration to stop the attempts to pressure financial institutions into divesting in these industries of coal, oil, and natural gas. Can you go into a little bit more detail on explaining your decision to join that effort and what that specific impact is on Pennsylvania?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So again, the Biden administration, they shouldn't be picking winners and losers based on politics. And I think banks, financial institutions should base their lending decisions on whether it's a good business decision. And that's not just for oil and gas. And when you think about oil and gas and the critical role it plays in the economies of many of our communities in Pennsylvania, the 500,000 jobs that support hardworking families. And again, I think I mentioned this in my remarks, but it's not just oil and gas, it's farmers, it's all the support services, and just the misuse of government power will just further raise energy costs for consumers and slow economic growth. And I will mention that with the impact fee since 2012, that's generated $1.9 billion and then additional tax revenues of $2.5 billion. So this really is important for Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Treasurer Garrity. The next question we have is for Mr. Weaver. And we all know that that climate change is a big concern of many of our constituents. What role does the natural gas industry play? And I know you touched a little bit on this, but what role does the natural gas industry play in changing that trajectory of the concern for climate change?
Sure, absolutely appreciate it, Representative. Natural gas is critical. We provide the bridge. As I like to typically start out, we realize that we need all forms of energy moving forward. Again, we shouldn't pick winners and losers. We should allow it to play out. What natural gas allows us to do is you're automatically seeing the benefits from it. When we talk to the power generation sector, and the reduction of CO2 emissions, as well as those other reductions that we see, that naturally occurred. No one said to do this. It's what it's what benefits everyone. It naturally took that direction, especially in the power generation. You're looking at something that's affordable, reliable. So that's the key that we need moving forward. Is we truly are the bridge that will get us to whatever comes next. But you're going to need natural gas, in the interim, if not, forever. It's a critical component, when it comes to the power generation sector, as well as providing, heat and fuel. Everybody wants to switch over completely to electricity. I don't want to say everybody, but there's this huge push to switch completely over to electricity. But there's people are. If we look at what's going on in Europe right now, it's a good telling tale as to what could potentially happen here if we move too quickly and dismiss natural gas.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next question. And actually, I'm gonna throw this one to Chris Heck. And in my district is the Pittsburgh Airport, and the Pittsburgh Airport, as we know, has really revolutionized and has been a leader in using natural gas to fuel and be energy independent with their microgrid. Can you explain a little bit about how that plays a role in not just with the airport but also the region?
Sure, Val. Thank you. It's important to understand that I think it was 2 years ago when the airport authority understood the importance of drilling on the airport property of natural gas. They figured this is an asset, a financial asset to help fund what we're seeing right now, which is a $1.4 billion TMP project, which is a terminal modernization project for Pittsburgh International Airport. Without the natural gas that was on the property, the financial resources would never have been there to generate this massive project that just begun last week. So, with that said, the microgrid itself, in conjunction with a number of different local companies here, is able to generate enough electricity on site, off the grid, to power the airport right now. There's also excess energy, excess electricity that they are able to transport off the site to our local community here to help the local communities with electricity. So it is unique. It is the first in our country, if not the world, to have a natural gas powered microgrid to fuel not only an international airport, but access to fuel a local community. That is a cost saving opportunity for this project, which has no effect on our residents in terms of tax dollars, zero on that project. So it truly is unique. And it's a great example of a partnership with the gas utilities, with engineering companies, the electricity utilities. So all working together, we are very proud to be the first of this source in the energy community.
in addition to what Chris was talking about, is that we have at the Pittsburgh Airport area is Neighborhood 91, which is an advanced manufacturing facility, which will be shared amongst the community and the business community. And that also will be fueled by the natural gas industry. And I think it's a practical and a real example of putting the business and businesses to use, as well as using natural gas and trying to solve our region's problems with making sure that we do this efficiently. We continue to have jobs in the region. As you know, our speaker had talked about before, is that the specifics on the jobs that have come out of this industry are just absolutely remarkable. Natural gas, because it has supplied a record of 40% of the U.S. net energy generation in 2020, that really led to the number of jobs that we have here, almost 480,000 total jobs, generating additional 3.7 jobs elsewhere in Pennsylvania's economy for each direct job in the state's natural gas and oil industry. 40 billion in labor income, and it contributed to almost 78.4 billion in Pennsylvania's gross domestic product. So it really has had an incredible impact on this state. Let me ask a question with Treasurer Garrity. I know that you've had that background in working with the natural gas industry. Could you go into a little bit more detail on what those experiences were and what what impact it had in your business and your business knowledge of that area?
Right. So again, my background's tungsten, and so my company made tungsten metal powder, starting from recycling of tungsten scrap and ore concentrates. So all the way down the value chain. But we would actually, one of the largest customers was actually Kennametal, based out of Latrobe, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. So first of all, recycling is very important. Our customers were largely in the Texas area, but a lot of the small carbide tool companies in the Pittsburgh suburbs. So again, when you think about the uses of tungsten, and when I really dug into it, about 60% of our business in some way, shape, or form really supported oil and gas. And we had 500 employees in a very small community in Bradford County. So oil and gas is very, very important. So how oil and gas goes, that's how a lot of our manufacturing goes, actually in Pennsylvania, and largely in the Pittsburgh area, as well as Bradford County.
Okay, so we got a couple of questions coming in here now. Okay, this is another question for Dan Weaver. It says, we are energy aware, but what are you doing to make the general public more educated about the issue and the government attack on the gas industry?
Sure. Yeah, that's every day, right? So you wake up and it's like, my wife typically says, well, what are you working on today? I said, I don't know yet. It just depends on what hit the news this morning. So we here at Pyoga, we do what we call a Just the Facts series. So every month we put out some talking points, as well as a short video, and you can access that right off of pyoga.org, the news and resources tab, latest news and blog. So we do that, and then as well as out on all of our social media, because energy education is extremely important, because if not, we'll continue to make mistakes, and that's what's happening around the world. And we have to continue to work together, and truly, we have this opportunity to be energy independent, and we need to utilize that, because it truly is not just about where our energy comes from. It's about the security of our nation. We cannot allow others to dictate, where our energy sources come from. And so if we have this opportunity, we're blessed enough to have these resources underneath our feet, we need to utilize those.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate it. One last question is what else can, and this is open to everybody, is that what else can we as legislators do to make sure that we're on the same page, and that we are encouraging all parts of the spectrum of both recycling and the whole loop of making sure that we are using our energy wisely, and also jobs. Anyone want to comment on that? I know we did lose one of our speakers, so
You're probably in a better position to comment as far as the legislative part goes. But what I will say is education.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I run into a lot of legislators that just don't understand that how go to a fracking site,
yes.
see how clean it is, and then I think that could change some perspective. I don't think anybody should be out there commenting until they've actually visited a site.
Treasurer Garrity, that's an absolutely fabulous point. We have done a lot of tours, and we certainly encourage people to do those tours, because when you look at where we were 20 years ago to where we are now, there have been phenomenal changes, and we certainly thank the industry for doing everything they can to improve our air and water quality, while also maintaining jobs and the economy. So we thank everybody for that. Well, at this time, we're going to wrap this up, and I'm going to turn this back over to Chris Heck to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gatos. There was a lot of time and energy put into this forum, and I'd like to thank the Keystone Energy Forum for bringing this message and having us hosted here in southwestern Pennsylvania. Treasurer Garrity, thank you for your time. The esteemed panel, everyone that put, again, a lot of energy into the whole thing. Mr. Summers, it was great to see you drop in and say a few words. And in particular, State Representative Valerie Gatos, great job in moderating here. We are about to sign off. Thank you all for spending the better part of your morning with us. It was a pleasure. And please look forward to some new events and ongoing events from the Keystone Energy Forum. They will be reaching out with similar forums and events. So have a great day, everyone, and thank you for tuning in.